Rise and shine. I just woke up with some insane downloads that I need to just get off my chest. And I had an experience yesterday with a potential client, and it was a really incredible learning experience. And conflict, it's unbelievable. It's such a beautiful teacher in our lives. And it tests whether or not we are harboring insecurity, inadequacy, or scarcity, any unresolved pain, trauma from the past. It'll bring that to the surface if it's still within you. And it's an incredibly beautiful teacher. Conflict is a beautiful teacher, and how you handle it will really show how much you've grown or how much you still have yet to resolve within yourself. And I'm not saying that we're going to ever stop growing. We're going to just continue to grow. If we have the ability to adapt rather than maladapt. I'd say when we start maladapting, where we start compensating and not solving the root of the issue, which always goes back to an inner turmoil and inner suppression of pain from the past, then we are just maladapting. We're not actually adapting. But I've been kind of exploring this space in understanding how ecosystems affect our health, wealth, love, and or happiness, or fulfillment, I should say. And let me be clear again. Let me clarify what I mean by health. I mean mental, emotional, physical, and social health. When I speak about wealth, I'm actually speaking about an inner wealth and emotional intelligence, the ability to regulate your nervous system, the ability to think critically, the ability to empathize and have compassion, the ability to set boundaries for yourself. So, you're able to remain in this way of love and a way of meeting your essential primary needs, which I'll get into later. So health, wealth, which allows us to truly love. It allows us to be our fullest expression of loving fully. And that may look like having boundaries with certain people and having compassion for certain people, and definitely understanding, being able to attune with even the people who are the antagonists in your story at the moment. Being able to understand, see, and value what it is that they're showing you in your life, what they're teaching you in your life, whether they are teaching you directly as a mentor or indirectly as, I guess, a teacher of life, you could say. But the ability to attune, in love, the ability to even love yourself, be authentic and love yourself, it comes to this inner wealth of emotional intelligence. And the result of this, of having this health, wealth, love, it also bleeds into our natural ability to be fulfilled in life. So health, wealth, love, and fulfillment are essential markers, feedback markers in our life that can really tell us whether or not the ecosystems we're in, the environments we're in, the environment of our body, the environment that we are bringing into our body, for example, as the water we drink, the food we eat, will determine whether or not we are able to grow in this health, wealth, love, and or fulfillment. So this even goes into this idea of terrain theory. If any of you guys know what terrain theory is, it's the idea that our health flourishes and prospers because the inner terrain of our body is in working order. It's taken care of. It's like a garden. It's seen as a garden, as an ecosystem that when it's working in harmony and symbiosis, there's no imbalance. When it's in balance between let's say the microbes, the gut microbes, the the way our organs are functioning, the way our brain is functioning. There's not like one part of the brain that's impaired, which is pretty common for traumatized people, where the medial prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for our ability to be emotionally intelligent, shuts down and it stops developing. Trauma also affects the nervous system. So there's this unconscious story of victimhood that is playing out, that is like an unconscious story that keeps us in distress. So it's always keeping our nervous system in fight or flight. Like we don't actually reach that rest and digest. So this ecosystem is like a garden. But terrain theory, I want to show you that it actually expands to greater terrains. So there's a terrain of our social environment. So there's a terrain of our physical environment, our physical body, which governs the balance of this physical aspect of ourselves. And then there's the terrain of our minds. The terrain of our minds. What I realize is that some people are in a state of either making their karma worse or they're making their karma better. Like people are either in this place where they are trying to resolve things within their relationships, things with their relationship to nature, things with their relationship to themselves. And then there are people who maybe be on like, I guess, an equally trying to better, but equally also just continually worsening their karma. And then there are people who are just continually worsening their karma, like sowing bad seeds, like literally just people that are sowing bad seeds. And what I realized about this was that there is another social terrain. So our social terrain plays a big part in our mental emotional development, our mental emotional intelligence, our ability to be nurtured by love. So when we meet our essential primary needs, human needs, which my motto I came up with is authenticity, which has a lot to do with being able to love, honor, respect, and care for yourself, your true highest self, and in your highest potential. Well, and also even your lower self. It's learning how to synthesize the two, balance the two, so you're centered in yourself. And then there's attunement. So authenticity was the first, attunement is the second. That's being able to see, hear, and value other people in relationship, to actually understand where they're coming from. So in this case, in the conflict that I just experienced, like I completely understand where this person's coming from. And when you understand how to attune with people, you'll actually understand the importance of boundaries to set with certain people. And the third need is Arcadia, to understand how nature is working, how the nature of the universe is working, how the nature within your own biology is working, and how they all work as an ecosystem. So this all goes back to terrain theory. So there's the terrain of our mind, there's the terrain of our body and the environment, and there's the terrain of our social circle. I realized that because the social terrain plays a big factor in whether or not we get these needs met, which is love. They're all aspects of love. They are the love that nurtures us to develop. They are the love that grows us. These three primary needs is the three aspects, the trinity of love that grows us and develops us, and even develops our brain. And there's scientific studies that show when we don't get these needs met, when we were neglected or abused, these parts of the brain that are responsible for our higher self to come and embody in our body and be functional in this world shut down. they get impaired. So I understand where all these people are coming from, which is why I'm not like a victim. I'm not complaining about anything. I'm actually just sharing this incredible wisdom that I gained from this experience and this encounter. But I realized that the social terrain is not just people who can attune with you, who can actually see value and hear your authentic self and honor your authentic self. They don't expect you to be a certain way in order for them to love you. But there's an aspect of the social terrain where when you surround yourself with people who are worsening their karma, you get pulled into that same culture. And I don't think that we have to avoid it like a plague where it's like cut and dry. I think there are times where we are called, depending on where you're at, like maybe we're called to help people and we are meant to be in that space. But I think in the long run, when we're in that space too long, that's what drains us, that's what exhausts us, and that's what starts clouding our mind when we start getting in these environments. So it's the same thing, that saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It's all the same thing. That's exactly explaining terrain theory. That's exactly explaining this law of nurture, of what I call it, law of nurture. And if you go into epigenetics, Bruce Lipton's work, how, before people used to think that, well, there's a lot of people who still think this, that if you have a cancer gene, then you're susceptible to cancer. But really what Bruce Lipton's work in the book, Biology of Belief, and if you study all his work, he shows that we all have a potential to express that cancer gene or that inflammation gene. And really what he found out is that it comes down to the environment we are in. Whether or not that environment stresses us out, he came down to the conclusion that it's even of the mind, the thoughts, and the emotions that also play a part in the expression of disease genes, cancer genes, inflammatory genes. And it goes back to terrain theory. It goes back to the law of nurture. And what I really started to understand was this deeper aspect of the law of nurture, this law of our social terrain or our social ecosystem. That there are people who are literally just not taking responsibility for their karma. And I believe we're all here to take responsibility for the karma we've inherited. It's nobody's fault, but it's our own responsibility to resolve within ourselves. I believe that is how we truly evolve, and that is what gets us on the path of meeting our own needs. That's what gets us on the path of aligning with love, aligning with nature, aligning with God, aligning with our higher self, our authentic self, and aligning with love. But it was this aspect of being mindful of watching people's patterns and whether or not they are taking responsibility or whether they are just recklessly accumulating this karmic debt. Because that social impact will affect us in ways we don't really understand. And we are going to experience it in the quality of our health, wealth, love, and or fulfillment. So pay attention to that. You're going to have to ask yourself sometimes, like, am I really bullshitting myself if my health, wealth, love, and or fulfillment is rapidly declining? If I'm going into a greater state of exhaustion and depression or brain fog, a loss of clarity, a loss of patience, a loss of vitality, you got to ask yourself, where am I bullshitting myself? What beliefs am I holding that is bullshitting myself, that is keeping me in distress? And how can I start making my way to align with these three trinity primary needs, which is the law of love? How can I start being more authentic? How can I start honoring the intelligence of my body, giving it good food, allowing my brain and my nervous system to heal so that my higher self can embody into this and I can actually develop real emotional intelligence and function how I'm supposed to function as my higher versions of myself? This is like the real spiritual work, what is going on. This is the real call to what the world needs right now, is their own radical responsibility for themselves. And that spirituality is in the chop wood, carry water, day in, day out, of creating these new habits that align with the law of love, that align with attunement, authenticity, and Arcadia. And you are resolving the karmic debt that you have inherited.